there, it's Amanda here from Lolli Lulu Crafts, and today we're going to be taking a look at my brand new toy that came for Christmas, and that is the Sizzix Big Shot Switch Plus. So I'm going to show you what's in the box, but I'm not going to actually unpackage it on camera. I think there's nothing more boring than that. Okay, so let's take these things out of the box and then I will come back to you and show you what they are. Okay, so this is what's in the box. So we've got the machine itself. I went for the white and silver. I just really liked that look. So then we have our power, two different parts to that. We'll go through that, and we've also got an adapter on there, which again, we'll go through all of that in detail in a moment. We've obviously got our instruction booklet, quite a lot to it because there's lots of different languages. So we'll put that to one side because who needs instructions? Then we've got an embossing folder. Now this is a 3D embossing folder. And then we've got 3 lots of dies. So that's really nice. So we've got a shapes one, a border and some florals. So again, really nice. Then we've got our different plates. So we've got our base plate, our additional little shim, and then our 2 cutting plates. And if you don't know what all this means because you've not had a die cutting machine before, I will go through it briefly. Obviously I'm taking into account that some of you do know, but some of you obviously don't, so I will just briefly touch upon what all that means in due course. So that's what comes in the box, and as I'm in the UK I don't need the adapter and we don't need that bit of card, so we take that off. And basically, obviously that goes into the wall, and this little chap, these just connect, and then on the machine itself, so we've got this little plug and we're just going to plug him in to the back, and then I'm going to go rummage around and put that into the mains socket. So I've plugged that in. I've taken the wrapping off that plate, but just showing you, you see it's just got this film over the top, and in theory you're supposed to just peel it all the way off in one piece, but there we go. So you want to make sure you remove that and take a good look at that, because that's the last time it's ever going to look like that. Now what I would say is, and I'll put it at the end of this video, although it refers to a different machine, the principle is the same. I've got a little tips video on how to keep your plates from not warping. So basically, if you're new to this, what happens is, I'll explain what these are for in a minute, but as you put these through the machine, the pressure does start to curve your plates. So what you want to do is try and reduce that pressure in order to stop them curving so much that eventually, I mean, they still work even though they curve, but it's just means that they'll last longer. I do a lot of die cutting, and yet only time I replace my plates is when I've sold a machine, because I've managed to keep them from not bending so much, etc., because I've used these tips. So I'll put that video at the end so that you can take a peek at that. So these are the 2 cutting plates. So basically, when you are die cutting, you're taking your die and it will cut that shape out of the cardstock, and in order to do that you want to allow the machine to put pressure down onto the die, into the card, and that cuts out the shape. So you create what we call a sandwich. Now, I'm sorry if you guys already know this because you're very familiar with it, but I'm just trying to do a quick run through for those that aren't. So there are different sandwiches depending on what you're using. So if you're using an embossing folder, so that's embossing the card, you know, with texture, as opposed to cutting something out. And there are also different types of dies. Mostly you'll have the thin ones, what we call thin dies, like these. So on the whole, this will be what you'll be doing. But the good thing about the Sizzix is that it puts the sandwiches on the actual thing that you're going to be using, so you can never lose it. Like if you sometimes you have machines and it's in the instruction booklet and then you lose the booklet and you're like, oh, I can't remember what the sandwich is. So it's quite handy. So you've got these different bits to it, but these 2 are the plates that your dies will cut into. You never ever allow your die to be directly in contact, even through paper. So even if there's paper there, you never allow it to cut into this. So it always has to have one of these there first, and then you put the die whichever way up you want, because it will be sandwiched between the two clear plates. Now, as I said, they won't be clear for long. Let me show you mine from the other machine. This is just one of them. Okay, and you can see it's very slightly curving, but you can see how it's got very sort of roughed up and cut. That's normal, don't worry about it. And you want to not try and keep it to one plate. You want to mix it around so that you spread out the load, as it were. So let's now get into actually looking at what this specific machine does. So we're going to start with the simple shape that they provided, but basically the cutting for all of these dies is the same, irrespective of the intricacy of the die. The only difference is that sometimes with more intricate dies you do need a little bit more pressure over the parts that are more intricate to get them to cut. Now there's two options with that. They suggest you could get this precision plate. I personally wouldn't bother spending the money. I suspect that you could manage perfectly fine without that, and you just need to add like a piece of paper over the die area, or even just over the whole thing, whatever, and that should, even a single piece of copy paper often is enough. However, just down to the basics, for normal thin cut dies, what you want to do is your base platform, your base plate, whatever you want to call it, followed by this shim, followed by cutting plate, always, piece of card, your die cut side down, so you'll see there's like a little ridge. Again, I'm just, for those that aren't familiar, there's like a little ridge on the die. If you look, that side's smooth, that side's got a little ridge. You want that on the down, because obviously it's cutting into the actual cardstock. And it doesn't actually matter if you want to do it the other way up. If you want to put your die down first and then your card on top, you can. I like doing it this way because I can see there where the die is on my card, especially helpful if you've got patterned paper. And then put that one on top, another cutting plate on top of that, making sure the machine's switched on. And then all we need to do is feed it up till it grabs, and off it pops all by itself. We just leave it. This is a reverse button, so if you've got a smaller die, oh, you can see that little flap coming open. If you've got a smaller die, you could reverse it, or if it was a more intricate die, you could pop it back if you wanted to. Now, just pop that back out. Take our, and you can already see this one, even though it's the top edge, still gets marked, even though it's not on the cutting part of it, you still get marks on it. So don't panic, it's normal, don't worry about it. And then we've got this beautiful cut. Okay, so I've taken a couple of dies from the floral set that they sent us. So I've got some leaves and one of the flowers. So this is also another thing you can do. You don't have to just do one thing on your pass through. So I've got a piece of green here, so I'm going to put my little leaves on there and my flower onto the pink. Now, I'm used to having a magnetic platform, so I don't tend to tape things down. I'm not that's not in my mindset, because the magnetic platform naturally will stick the dies down onto the platform below. However, I did actually email Sizzix themselves and ask them, can my magnetic platform from my Big Shot, my normal Big Shot, go through this machine? And they said yes. So we will look into that in due course, but that's not a part of the video for today. That's going to be for another time. But I just thought I'd let you know that apparently they officially told me it can, and I told them it was to be said on the video, and they were perfectly happy for that. So you can just see we're popping those two through together now, and you can see that one fell out straight away. And this one cut through beautifully, but it's just got stuck into the die, which is not unusual. And again, cut absolutely beautifully, really cut nicely through that. You can see how lovely that cut through. So this is the most intricate of the three that they sent to us, and we've got an outside and we've also got an inside. Now the reason they do this separately, again if you're new to this completely, is that you could do this and create like a window and it's just inside and you haven't cut the outside edge. So you could make the outside really thick, or you could make it just down the center of a whole card. It just gives you options. You could do 3 in a row and then cut around it as a square, so it creates like panels. So it gives you the option. And then also, of course, you've got this separately to create your rectangle. Now you can put them through together, but if you're a bit unsure, then the easiest thing to do is just get a bit of low tack tape and just pop it in place. Whoops. So that it just holds it and it doesn't move around, so that you get it roughly. I mean, I don't think I've done that absolutely perfectly, but it's good enough for the purposes of this video. I'm not trying to cut it for anything in particular. And again, as before, we've got exactly the same combination. And then just wait till it grabs hold. Now if you're a little bit insecure about putting the two together, because in case it moves and damages it or anything, the dies, then you can do them separately and, you know, do one part and then do the other, but I don't think we have an issue. And as you can also see, we haven't really had any issues with it cutting that out. I'll just need my little brush. Okay, so all I did was use this little brush over a little spongy base, and what happens is often, even though it's cut out beautifully as you can see, is that a more intricate die, the pieces just stay in, and so just using the little brush over it, it saves you having to poke out each little piece individually. Sometimes if you can't be bothered with that, if you add that extra little shim of a piece of paper, that will help. But to be honest, it really didn't need it. It was just that 2 seconds of going over with that little brush, or if you haven't got a little brush, just using your nails and going along, and that will pop them out. You saw me start to do that, but I just was, it's so much quicker using the little brush, and I've got it, so why not? So that's this cut out, and as you can see, it's cut out absolutely beautifully crisp, lovely sharp lines. Okay, so the last thing that we're going to do for today's video is the embossing folder that came in the kit. Now this is a 3D embossing folder. I did double check just to be sure, even though it kind of was obvious just from the looking of it. And again, if you're new to this, you probably won't see it very well on here, but the difference between a regular embossing folder and this is that there are different levels of embossing. So some pieces are deeper than others, but they're still embossed, whereas normally there's 2 levels, there's embossed or not. This has maybe, you know, couple of levels of embossing and depths to the embossing, so that's why they call it 3D. So looking at our instructions here, we've got here 3D textures, impressions, 3D to blah blah blah, 3D basically, and their little embossings. And what they're saying is you want your base plate, your embossing folder with your card, and then 1 cutting plate. Now we call it a cutting plate even though we don't always use it for cutting, as you can see here. So I thought it would be fun to actually take the piece that we cut out as a shape, since it was pink and these are hearts, pop that inside, kind of like so, put that down, then you put your cutting plate on top, and then all we do is again feed it to the machine till it grabs and let it do its thing. But let's have a look. Hoping you can catch that. You can see what I mean about 3D now, how the hearts are at different levels. So that is the embossing folder, and obviously with the regular embossing folder I don't know what it says about that. Let's have a look. Embossing folders, normal ones. I guess that's textured impressions. So for normal embossing folders, let's grab one of those and do that, even though that didn't come in the kit, just so we can have a look at how that works as well. Okay, I don't even know what this is, this brand. It's just one that I took out the front of my embossing folder pile. It's just a regular embossing folder, normal 2 levels. And what it's saying is for these, you want to do the base plate, your, God, these bits are everywhere, cutting plate, your embossing folder, and your cardstock inside. And then I'm going to slightly twist that because I think that will help it. And then your cutting plate on top again. So let's just push that through till it snatches. There we go. Wow, that is one beautifully deep set of embossing. Look at that. So that's just your regular embossing folder. So we've seen a 3D one and a regular one. So the difference really is this extra cutting plate. So with a 3D one, you don't need that. You only need 1 cutting plate. For a regular embossing folder, which most of us are what we would use, we would need to sandwich our embossing folder in between the 2 plates. Okay, so that is all our pieces, and you can see all of them done there from what came in the kit, except for this one, which was a regular embossing folder, and they all came out beautifully. You saw it as I did it. There was no retakes. This was, each one was the first cut and the first emboss. I'd not done it before, so it was as simple as literally reading it off the card on the platforms, and nice and easy to do. So you can see just from this video itself, you should be able to get going just cutting regular things and embossing, which is really the most things that we do with these machines. So I hope you found this video useful, and I enjoyed taking a look at this with me and seeing how it works. But for now, thanks so much, and I will see you again soon. Bye for now. Bye.